that phase that I think a lot of little girls go through, which is the Wizard of Oz obsession, where she had to wear her Dorothy costume every day. And for her birthday, we of course had a Wizard of Oz party, and we were going to dress up. We told our daughter. She looks at me and she says, "Mommy, you get to be the Tin Man because you don't have a heart, and Daddy gets to be the Scarecrow because he doesn't have a brain." Jordan looks at me dead in the eyes and says,
I was hoping it would take her a little longer to figure that one out.
If only parenting were as smooth as bourbon. I'm Lene.
And I'm Jordan.
And this is Bourbon and Babies Podcast.
Straight up parenting on the rocks.
All right, here we are. It is episode 14 of Bourbon and Babies. I will give you guys a little hint. We are only going to have one more episode before the end of season 1.
It's over.
Only season 1. We're going to take a break for the holidays. We have some awesome guests arranged already for next season, and we will come back and be with you all after January.
Speaking of awesome guests.
That's right. We have Chandra and Johnny Gordon. Chandra is the executive director of the Library Foundation, and Johnny Gordon is a local glass artist. In fact, Johnny's glass, I have to give a shout out to Johnny's glass art here. I mean, the library's awesome too. But the glass art, holy hell, guys. Get on Instagram and follow at Gordon Glass Studio, and you will see some gorgeous works of art. He is a very impressive person, but he would never tell you that because he's also sort of humble.
I try very hard.
All right, so before we get into today's topic, we have to talk about our bourbon cocktail. And I found a recipe for a cocktail called the Blueberry Basil Bourbon Cocktail. I'm saying
what is happening?
As I watch Lene pull out a huge chunk of basil hanging from her mouth. So this cocktail starts off with
A lot of greenery.
Seriously. It looks like a salad threw up in my glass.
It's very tempting, I know. So we start off with some finely chopped basil.
Chiffonade.
Which Jordan may or may not have stolen from the grocery store.
Wait, no.
Hashtag Kroger.
Muddled together with some blueberries and simple syrup. And then there's 1.5 ounces of bourbon and 4 ounces of seltzer water. And of course, ice to cool it out. So what do y'all think of the bourbon basil bourbon cocktail?
Y'all, it's gross.
Not really.
It's not good. Don't make this one.
Hey.
It is not good.
It is okay?
I wouldn't do it on purpose.
But I expect it to be a lot sweeter than it is. It's really not sweet at all. In fact, it has a undertone of pot, if you will.
Y'all, the basil makes it smell and taste like dank weed. I mean, not that I know. Yeah, we don't.
At all.
We would absolutely not.
And our guests don't. Okay, I'll admit it. I may
have experimented in college years and years
and
ago.
I didn't inhale. But it tastes.
But you might have tasted
exactly
it
the same way. It's so gross.
Yeah.
And when you take a sip, you get like chunks of blueberry and basil all in your mouth.
It's a
not
good
good.
way. It's a good way
You
to
get
ruin
some fiber.
We
You
just
get
ruined some
fiber.
bourbon. I'm
Yeah.
ashamed of us.
Oldest daughter is now a bartender.
And not just a bartender, but a great bartender. I mean, no, she's craft cocktails. She knows her stuff.
Well, she got to craft our next one because this one sucks. Try it out for yourself. Let us know what you think. This is the first fail.
It's a fail.
Fail. All right, so today's topic, we're talking about how kids are harsh. Yeah,
They're real. They're real.
They have no filter.
No.
Now, they just say whatever is true to them, and they don't think about how you feel, right?
If you're not careful, they grow up into adults with no filter.
One of the reasons I was excited about having you guys on the show is because your kids are older than our kids. So we have a 6-year-old and a 1-year-old. You guys have a
23,
18, and 16-year-old.
And at this point, they are honest and they know exactly what buttons to push.
Ooh.
So there's honesty and there's also understanding who we are at the most basic level.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh, when did that happen?
3?
Aw.
Shit.
All right, so far we're all
we're on
right.
Yeah.
See, our daughter is brutally honest with us and our friends.
There was 3 weekends in a row where we had guests in town. And all 3 weekends, she said something wildly inappropriate to the guests that made them feel sad in their hearts.
Oh,
It made their hearts frown.
But that makes everybody else happy. I mean, well, it makes you guys happy on the inside just a little bit because it's kind of beautiful in a sort of way.
No, it's
I mean,
kind of embarrassing.
It's totally
love it.
embarrassing.
Oh, I love it so much. I love.
and this is why our children are the way they are.
Yeah, slap
Way to go,
people.
John.
It's like every time they made someone cry, you laughed.
A little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
My
Can you
heart
not
is
help it?
smiling.
One of our best friends, he's kind of lacking in the hair department. Yeah.
Peter, what up, Peter?
Peter, hey, what's up?
Oh,
He
Paul
likes-
Peter. Yeah.
Yeah, bald Peter. And our daughter looks right at him and says, "Does everybody have hair?" He goes, No, we don't all have hair.
Also, fuck you. She also, one of our other friends, was getting changed into a dress, and she looks at her and goes, "Your belly is big. What do you say to that?"
You don't say a damn thing.
She was the sweetest, though. She handled it with grace, our friend. She said, "Yeah, it is kind of big, isn't it?"
Yeah, that's all it is.
And if I went to the next room and cried,
She did. She totally went into the next room and cried. And by the way, her belly is not actually that big. It's just, you know what I mean? Like our,
It is
our
to a
daughter
kid.
being a kid, I guess so. And also, she was standing at eye level with someone's belly. So, you know, she told me, "You look prettier when you have that makeup on."
Aw. See, I actually prefer you without the makeup. Because as you told me the other day, makeup goes into the wrinkles.
I did. Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah.
When you put makeup on, it like
And
accentuates
let's
the
just
wrinkles
be
somehow.
clear here. There's a decade between us right now.
Yeah, but
so, like,
see,
But you still look
I have
beautiful.
more wrinkles
You have a
than
glow.
you.
do I?
You
Thank
do.
Yeah.
You have less
actually
wrinkles
really
than I do.
very good skin. It makes me kind of angry.
We're talking about honesty now, and the other day it was beautiful to me because we were out like on the beach. Riley's like, "Hey, Mom, you're pretty right now."
What do you want? That would be my response. What do you want?
It's not manipulative yet. You know, it's
Yeah.
it's actually truthful.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's the beauty of all of that when they're that young.
Well, look, I mean, at that
Thank you
age,
for being honest.
they are figuring out the power of words, and they do try it out. And in fact, I can remember it at that age. I remember a couple of times saying things just to kind of, does that work? Do I get a reaction?
Right.
And you're so into yourself, it's really all about you.
Yeah.
You know, it's not till you get older that you figure out that you're hurting someone when you do that.
Tell me more about your kids saying and doing things that were brutally honest.
So I had a beard that I grew for
Ever.
Yeah, for a while. And I guess beard becomes like part of an identity of
Yeah.
you. You know, it's like you grow this out for a while and it's like, oh, I can now sculpt my face, you know? And it's like, oh, those chins gone. You know, like,
Hidden,
oh, now
not
I can,
gone.
Strong
now I
jawline.
can give myself, you know, the strength that I've always wished I had. You
My
know?
good
And it's-
God.
And it's funny because when I sold cars for a long time and they wouldn't let you have a beard. And the reason why is because that said that you were dishonest.
Fuck you.
Right.
Jordan has a beard, by the way. For those of you who have never seen him.
So every once in a while, you got to shave it off, though. I mean, we are married for a long time. It's like you have to be like, oh, look, you get a different guy. I mean,
You have to
that's
freak out your wife and your kids. I mean, it's fun.
So I did shave this beard off after a couple of years, and I went to go ahead and pick Jack up from school, and he comes into my truck, and he just looks at me, and he's just shaking his head. He's like, no, no, you're chubby. I love that little bastard.
So there's mean shit that cuts to the core.
Uh-huh.
And then there's honesty. So I have an honesty story. Our oldest was going to get her driver's license, and it's like a month beyond her birthday. So I go pick her up from school, and we get over there, and we stand in line forever, as you do, which takes us right up till closing time, and it was probably Friday. And we get up to the window, and we had not gotten some documentation from school that we needed.
No.
So she's done everything she needed to do, and she's waited a month beyond, and now after all of this, she can't get it. And I think maybe there was 20 minutes for us to get back to the school and get back to the DMV. I start internalizing my guilt as a bad parent for not preparing her properly.
And that's what we do. It's always our fault.
I didn't make sure she had everything. So we get in the car and we're driving back, and the whole way there, like, now I'm rushing and I'm mad. I'm mad because she's upset. She's sad. She's waited this long. It's my fault. As we're driving, I start changing the story in my head. And I'm like, you know what? This was her license. Why doesn't she know she needs this information? I'm a full-time worker. I've got 2 other kids. I've got a husband. This is, she's got to take responsibility for herself.
4 babies? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, that's basically what I'm saying. And so in my head, this is what I'm telling myself as we're driving back to her high school. And I'm just getting pissed off. Now, this girl hasn't said a thing. She hasn't sighed. She hasn't done anything, but I'm working myself up. And we get to the school and I stomp in and we get everything we need to get. And we get back in the car and we drive back to the DMV. And of course it's closed and we can't do it.
Oh,
and now I'm devastated. I'm devastated because she hasn't done what she needed to do to get her license. And I knew how badly she wanted it. Pull into our driveway and we're sitting there and she's like, "What's wrong, Mom?" And I'm like, "You know what? I've got a lot going on in my life and other people need to take responsibility for themselves. And you knew this was coming and you should have made sure." And da-da-da. And she goes, "I'm really sorry that this is so hard for you, but you're the mom. And this is just what moms have to do."
Oh my God. Did you just cry?
I
think I would just cry.
Yeah.
I would just cry and never stop crying.
No, she blamed me.
I think if that had been me or my sisters, if I'm being very honest, we would have been just railing against Mom for getting this. And I'm going to be the only one at school that doesn't have my license. I mean, we would have been having a total meltdown.
And you know what? That was me. I was having that conversation in my head.
Right.
And I was having the meltdown in my head.
That you were expecting. Wow.
Yeah. And my kid was the one that was mature and said, "Your mom." And this is what happens.
So what else have your kids said that was just harsh?
You got to talk about Jack.
This doesn't work well on a podcast, but Jack taught me this face.
This face. I'm going to describe this face. I can't even describe this face.
The eyes are empty.
Like,
The mouth is not a smile nor a frown.
There is nothing.
It's looking through me.
You're not supposed to really, react, in a way like that's angry. Like, I can't come off and be like, all the time.
You can't do that?
Not when that's the sole purpose of the kid that's pushing every button you've got. Like, the sole purpose is to piss you off.
So what does he say to piss you off?
He knows that the life of a glass artist isn't exactly the most profitable.
Mm-hmm.
And so it'll occasionally be things, along the lines of like, hey, should I ask Mom for money because I know you're not making any this week? So that's and there's the difference.
And what do you say?
And there's the face. I just got to give the face. I mean, that's really it. So what about you guys?
Our 1-year-old doesn't say mean things.
But he rejects me all the time.
He does totally, though. He doesn't have to say the mean things for you to know what he's saying. He's very demanding. The 6-year-old, though, we were in a bathroom stall, and I pulled my pants down to pee, and she was like, "Mom, why do you have so much hair there?" And I was like, "Louder, please. Louder. Let's make sure everyone in the bathroom hears about my pubic hair. Thanks." She's really good about setting boundaries in kind of a rude way. So, for example, we would put her to bed at night, and we have our bedtime routine. Okay, so we read her a book, and we lay down and we snuggle, and she will snuggle one of us, and then she'll go, "You can go now." You are dismissed.
Please send in Mom.
Yes, she'll say, "Please send in Mom," or
I
"Please
need
send
mommy
in Dad."
snuggles now. And she was having a play date the other day with one of her friends from school. And she went next door to one of our neighbor girls and had her come over. And they were all playing, having a good time. And Lene sees the neighbor girl stomp kind of through the living room and out the front door. And And then goes in the backyard. It's like, hey, why did she leave? And it's like, oh, my friend told her that she didn't come here to play with her. She came here to play with me. So she left.
She wanted her to go home.
So she was very direct. Again, kids being super harsh. Yeah, I remember when I used to babysit, and I had these 2 kids, and I was a little overweight in high school. And I remember one of the kids just looking at me and go, are you fat? And I was like, no.
Are you ugly?
It's like, I'm like, shit, yeah, I'm fat. I can't hide it from you. Can't hide it from anyone. I can't fool myself anymore.
Aww.
I'm fat. I internally cried.
There are so many good stories out there of people whose kids have said mean things.
Yeah, I was reading this one guy who's at the beach with his kids, and they're in the ocean, and the waves are coming. The kid goes, Dad, when the waves come, your boobs go up and down. I think that'd be the last time I have my shirt off in public.
I was going to say, that sounds very familiar. I don't like that one.
Oh, so there's a little girl in dance class, and she says, Miss Ashley, I love you, but Miss Lisa is so much prettier. Your husband should marry her.
Oh my gosh.
That is some mean girl
So
shit
wait.
right
Okay,
there.
what do we do when our kids say this mean stuff? How do we help them to know when it is appropriate to be honest and when you should just keep your little mouth shut?
I actually think about this a lot because even
Stupid Jack.
child that's being honest, you can take them aside and go, okay, let's talk about this. If somebody said this to you, how would you feel? There are times when, while it may be true, we don't necessarily have to say it.
Yeah.
Right,
Building
so-
those empathy skills.
Yeah, and
Sure.
a big piece of those empathy skills are that 3-part question of, is it true, is it kind, and is it necessary? The kind one, I think, is probably the hardest for kids to internalize.
Well, we're going through steps here. I mean, is it true is like, well, yeah, she's prettier than Miss Ashley. Is it kind? To get to the second step is like a further part of development, and I don't know when that happens. What, 20?
Well,
You
know what though? I think you've hit the nail on the head. These are hard questions, and I think developmentally, depending on where the kids are, you can't get too deep into them. The true piece, though, I think that is the most important, especially in the early ages, because helping a kid understand that what is true to them is not necessarily true to other people. That's a big distinction to make.
Yeah.
What is the difference between an opinion and a fact? So, for example, when our daughter said, "You have a big belly."
Compared to who?
Yeah.
Right. So she did not have a big belly compared to probably your average American. But our daughter, who's really only seen her own belly, well, yeah, she's, like 12 inches wide at this point? I mean, she was teeny tiny.
They're kids. And we have to, as parents and as adults, realize that they're children. And I'm sorry, that's a 4-year-old talking. There's nothing good or bad about it. It's a 4-year-old that's experiencing their world and talking about it.
Yeah.
There's nothing to correct there.
There isn't a filter.
Now, adults have all kinds of baggage.
I mean, a lot of the times it's the reaction to those words that causes the pain. Quite honestly, it's not even the kid saying something. It's how the adults react to that. Like, oh, you can't say that. Or, you shouldn't say that. And you're like, wait a second. Like, I can handle the kid saying that, but what the fuck are you saying about my belly here? So it's the rest of it that kind of comes along with all of that. It's not even what the kid will say.
Hey, I think you're absolutely right, because adults, we view ourselves so critically. I don't think kids think about it. They don't even think that, oh, I'm fat, I'm thin, until that is kind of pushed upon them. But as adults, we have so much of that baggage that when a kid says it, knowing that they're going to speak whatever they see, and it's like if a kid says it, then it must be true.
True, kind, and necessary is important. I teach it in the professional development class when we talk about empathy and how to be more self-aware and how to manage relationships in a more effective, positive way. And I think it is absolutely applicable to kids also. Our daughter and I can absolutely have a conversation right now about true, necessary, and kind.
Yeah.
No question. I mean, she gets it. We've had this conversation. She understands what it means for her to think something and understand that somebody else might think something totally different.
If they're thinking about saying something, being honest, think beforehand, is it true? If it is, okay, good. You passed the first step. Oh, is it kind? Maybe. And is it necessary?
While these are fantastic lessons to teach, there is sometimes you don't get to breathe. And it's just like, what the hell did you just say? Okay, sorry, so sorry. You know, and like you're taking a kid and running off the other way, and the other kid just like, yeah, fat guy. You're like, no, you gotta come with me. You know, it's like
this fluffy.
it's just fluffy guy. That's what you're supposed to say. Is that kind of necessary? But kind of, yeah. You know, and like your kids are never, ever, 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 ever gonna be politically correct. I mean, ever.
Yeah, and that's the beauty. They're honest. Not so much now are we having the, is it true, is it kind, is it necessary? Now the conversations that we're having with the kids are, how much of is it your shit versus their shit? And how wrapped up are you in, you know, all the stuff.
Well, I think some of that comes to the, is it true?
Yeah. And true is relative.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's why it's the first step.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It is relative, and that is complicated. And so, to your point earlier, I think that, yes, it is a hard thing to have this conversation at different ages. And I think Johnny's point about it being impossible to sit and have these conversations every single time that your kids say something, especially when you have
sometimes, not
kids.
everything, sometimes. If everybody can just take a deep breath and just be like, ha, funny.
It is, always. After the fact, it's always funny.
One of the things we do is talk to our kids about resilience and owning up to things and the fact that you have to make mistakes. That's part of it. It's part of being successful.
Yeah.
Is making the mistake, owning it, and moving on.
One of the things that I struggle the most with in my profession is I have to teach grown-ass people how to apologize because no one ever really taught them what it means to apologize and how to. Acknowledging that you made a mistake and understanding that you made a mistake, I think, is key. And this is one of the things that I don't want us to get past. Our job is to teach them. Our job is to say, hey, I know you said this, and I understand that you thought you were just speaking the truth. And maybe on some level it is true, but please understand, too, that there is a person behind the listener.
You also, by allowing your kids to make a mistake and not shaming them, you empower them. And I think that's the difference there, is that when you jump on that kid and say, don't say that, and with no explanation, and that's shame. And the kid doesn't understand. All they know is that they've done something wrong. Yeah. And I think what we've learned over and over and over again
is to drink a lot of bourbon.
Yeah.
Those moments are going to happen. So like Johnny said, just drink some bourbon and try to laugh it off. Have a conversation with your kid when you can. And know that you're not alone. All of our kids are kind of harsh.
So that's it for episode 14 of Bourbon and Babies. Please remember to follow us on social media on Facebook, Instagram,
at Bourbon and Babies Podcast.
And share our episodes, rate our episodes, and also, we love our bourbon, we love our babies. But
please drink responsibly. See you next week. You guys remember that whole No Shave November thing?
No, it's
Movember.
It's No Nut November.
No, it's Movember.
I'm sorry, what? What are you talking about?
Are you not on the internet?
No nut.
No, what is No Nut November?
The end. I mean, that's what
you
it was.
Can't come
it
for
was
a whole month.
Yes.
What?
That was. Oh, come
Somebody's
on,
playing
really?
a joke on you.
Oh my God, no! Pay attention, people. No Nut November is basically this entire thing, which is like where people would abstain.
Well, because it's like testicular
November.
cancer, right?
Sure.
No, but like, wasn't that? No, I thought that was the whole thing behind like Movember. Like it was like awareness of testicular cancer. So that would kind of make sense with the no nut.
Oh, it probably is. Actually, you're probably right.
I mean,
literally,
no nut.
Well, so this thing, Movember.
Solidarity.
Oh my God. Movember was about that, and it was about not shaving your face for the month of November. And some women got on board, and they were like, well, if you're not going to shave your face, I'm not going to shave my legs. And I saw this meme the other day that was like, women who participate in No Shave November will be participating in No D December.
It just makes No Nut November really easy.
So easy.
That's
Very
not
fast.
true. That's not true. I like Harry Wood.
Oh, God. I'm so...
I'm a child of the 70s.
I am.
Have you guys seen Bob Ross?